Arthur had owned his farmhouse for as long as anyone could remember. It wasn't just a stretch of acreage. It was bloodline, memory, and promise stitched into soil. A quiet fragment of the past resting gently in the countryside. For decades, his days move in a steady rhythm of sunrise light, honest labor, and the rich scent of freshly turned earth. But that steady rhythm was about to be broken. A sprawling luxury development, packed with identical mansions and perfectly edged lawns, rose up beside his property, and with it arrived a new force. The Homeowners Association, headed by a woman named Diane, didn't see Arthur's weathered farmhouse as heritage. To them, it was an eyesore, a flaw in their polished, sterile paradise. They wanted his land, and they were prepared to push as far as necessary to claim it. At first, the pressure came quietly. Citations for unauthorized structures like his 100-year-old barn, complaints about his rooster daring to crow at sunrise, endless minor violations designed to exhaust him through fees and paperwork. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Diane, dressed in tailored suits and armed with a razor-sharp smile, orchestrated every move. In her eyes, Arthur was just a stubborn relic, a man stuck in the past blocking her vision of progress. She imagined a sleek community center, or maybe a shimmering pool sitting exactly where his vegetable rows now thrived. One bright afternoon, Diane decided subtlety had run its course. She marched up Arthur's gravel driveway, a thick envelope clutched in her hand. Arthur was seated on his porch, slowly sipping lemonade, watching the breeze roll through the fields. He noticed her determined stride kicking dust into the air. He didn't tense. He didn't stand. He simply took another unhurried sip. "Mr. Arthur," she began, her tone coated in artificial courtesy, "we've attempted to be reasonable." Arthur met her gaze, calm and unwavering. "Reasonable? Is that what you call finding me over the color of my tractor?" Diane's smile tightened at the edges. "Your property fails to meet community aesthetic standards. We're presenting a generous offer, more than enough for you to relocate somewhere more suitable." She placed the envelope on the small table between them. Arthur didn't even glance down at it. "This land has belonged to my family for 5 generations. My great-great-grandfather built this house with his bare hands. You think a check replaces that? This is my home. It isn't for sale." The civility drained from Diane's expression. "Let me make this clear," she snapped. "We have the best legal team in the state. We've uncovered dozens of zoning violations and historical code breaches. We can keep you tangled in court for years. We will drain your resources, and in the end, we will own this land. This is your final chance to leave with something." She stood there, radiating confidence, waiting for him to fold. But Arthur only offered a slow, knowing smile that never quite touched his eyes. "Well, Diane," he replied gently, "I suppose you'll have to do what you believe is right." Frustrated by his composure, she grabbed the envelope and stormed off, convinced he was bluffing, an old man clinging to the inevitable. The HOA intensified its campaign, filing lawsuit after lawsuit. The dispute quickly became town gossip. Some residents saw the association as ruthless bullies. Others believed Arthur was standing in the way of progress. The confrontation was destined for the upcoming town hall meeting. Though the agenda listed several topics, everyone knew the real focus was a zoning battle between Diane's HOA and Arthur. The hall filled to capacity. Diane and her board occupied one side, flanked by polished attorneys and stacks of organized files, projecting confidence. Across from them sat Arthur alone in simple work clothes, looking as relaxed as if he were waiting for a bus. When the mayor called a meeting to order and Diane took the podium, she delivered a smooth and persuasive speech about protecting property values, strengthening community standards, and shaping the town's future. She portrayed Arthur as an unreasonable obstacle, a selfish holdout blocking collective progress. Charts, documents, and legal arguments built what seemed like an airtight case. The audience murmured in agreement, many visibly swayed. When she finished, she cast a triumphant glance toward Arthur. The mayor then addressed him. "Mr. Arthur, would you like to respond?" Arthur approached the podium without a single document in hand. He stood quietly for a moment, allowing silence to settle heavily over the room. "Evening, everyone," he began evenly. "I've heard a lot tonight about community and what's best for this town." He looked directly at Diane. Diane says my farm is a liability, that it drags down property values. She and her association have worked mighty hard trying to get me to leave. He paused. They've offered money. They've threatened court. They're quite confident they'll win. Then he turned to face the crowd. When this development was first proposed, the builders needed a very large loan. Local banks were hesitant. It was a major risk. But one mortgage bank believed in the project and financed the entire thing. They hold a mortgage on every single home in that new neighborhood. A ripple of confusion moved through the audience. Diane's expression tightened. Arthur continued, "A few years ago, I received an inheritance. I didn't buy a sports car or travel the world. I'm a simple man. I prefer investments that grow. So I invested heavily in a stable, reliable mortgage bank." He locked eyes with Diane as her face paled. "The very same bank that holds all of your mortgages. As it turns out, my stake was significant. In fact, I'm the majority shareholder." The silence that followed was absolute. Shock spread across the room. HOA board members exchanged stunned looks. Their attorneys shuffled papers frantically. Arthur's steady voice cut through the tension. "So, Diane, you say you want what's best for this community. As the man who technically owns the bank that owns your homes, I agree. A strong community needs good neighbors. Neighbors who respect one another. Neighbors who don't try to bully an old farmer off land his family has tended for generations." He glanced around the hall one final time. "I believe that settles things." He stepped away from the podium, leaving behind a room in chaos. Diane stood motionless, her face flushed with humiliation and fury. The balance of power hadn't simply shifted. It had completely reversed. Arthur exited the town hall, climbed into his old pickup, and drove toward home as the sun dipped low on the horizon. The rooster would crow again at dawn. The tractor would stay in its barn, and the farmhouse would endure for generations yet to come. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. See you next time.